I guess my question was for you guys as far as where your support is as far as with the movement and what your objectives are.
Okay, well, my support with the movement is, of course, standing in solidarity with Occupy Wall Street, and my heart is dedicated to the GA method that they use there. It's essentially the system for, decision-making-ish, or rather solution-making or solution-finding as I see it. So I think that is, one of the bigger parts of the movement. And then, of course, I'm in the movement myself, to help create that unified voice for Minnesota so that we can, have the same effects that Wall Street and all of the other cities with occupations in it are currently having in those local areas.
And I'm also very interested in the General Assembly method too, because I think one of the main motivations for my involvement is to see an actual democracy take place out of this. And we're sort of demonstrating that with the General Assembly process. And also, I'm personally very strongly motivated by fairness in economics. I just want to see a lot of changes as far as that's concerned and with our political process.
So where are your targets more based towards? We've been talking in class as far as with the other speakers as far as being the Federal Reserve, government, big business, and trying to get basically the playing field leveled as far as in the voice more commonly heard, I guess.
Definitely. For me personally, I would just like to see corporations or just business and government a lot more separated and get the money out of politics. So that's my target. I think that's something that's shared by a lot of other people as well. Kind of one of the general things that we all can pretty much agree on.
I definitely agree with getting money out of, the political system as it is. There are some bigger issues that I'd like to see, come up, and that's more so just corporate control, corporate personhood. I definitely stand with some sort of universal healthcare system and some massive overhaul in the monetary system, whereas we, the 99%, are, forced to work day in and day out and day in and day out for meager pay and lots of bills while some people get a bit just on the fly.
My final question, I guess, would be for both of you is with the movement and the protest, you're still dealing with a government and business, and without initiatives being instituted as far as to the politicians and to big business, nothing's really, as far as without something being put forth to them, nothing's going to get started or get initiated for that matter. Are you guys working on something to put forth as an initiative, or leaving it up to them to make the decisions on what to change and how to change it? And that's where I'll end. Thanks, guys.
Oh, thank you. I think I like to keep more big picture focused. I don't like to see Occupy Minnesota or any of the Minnesota occupations in the sense of them standing up just here locally. I do believe that we can make initiatives and help create change here locally, but I think the most grandeur part of it all is standing in solidarity with all the other cities, because we're not, the only city. I think there's over 1,200 cities right now that have occupations in it. And I think just the general act of occupying and then starting or beginning to network with all of the other occupations will help us lead to whatever initiatives we need to bring forward.
Yeah, I think that, I try to focus on the big picture as well. As far as, any sort of initiatives politically, at this point, we're still kind of working on it. I mean, the point, I think, is to raise awareness of the fact that, the system is corrupted, and working within that broken system isn't really going to, it'll just be patchworks of, regulations, things like that haven't been effective, and I don't think will continue to be effective if we just go that route first. So I think that's sort of the goal, I think, of a lot of the occupations is to just get together and occupy first, and then together work on, a different solution for how to bring changes.
Although there are solutions at hand that could be very beneficial, and I know that people are bringing them forth, and we are creating, change in smaller ways, I'd say, with our dedication and advocacy to foreclosed homes and issues such as that. But the acts of occupying and standing in solidarity with all of the occupations worldwide, and then allowing yourselves to network to not just change our system here in America, but worldwide, globally.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions?
So they just plan for us to be a one global world, like a new world order at some point? I guess I'm not following what their whole agenda is for, you know, they're working within a broken system, as they admit already, but they want to keep that system.
So I think the question is, since the Occupy movement has gone global, and initially the genesis of it here was a focus on problems within the United States, and the movement has now spread far outside the United States to many other countries and cities who have very different problem sets than we have. Do you all think that in any way, well, do you see that as a benefit or as a impediment to achieving your long-term goals?
Well, I don't think that our long-term goals are 100% the same. Like you said, you know, there are very different problems all over the world that people are, you know, primarily concerned with depending on where they live. What I would think would be the most effective, I think that what we can all agree on is that we want democracy, like an actual real democracy, and people will just, I think the more local these things occur, the better, because people will, I mean, we can't have a solution to a problem that will, you know, that the entire world is going to be able to benefit from in the same way. So, I mean, people have to do what, people in all of these different Occupy movements have to do whatever is right for their communities, but, you know, ultimately it's just, yeah, I wouldn't say like a new world order sort of thing is anyone's real goal. It's all about what, just democracy in general, so people can actually make these decisions for themselves, what works best for their communities.
And I'd like to see, again, it's more the focus of the General Assembly in that method. If that method is instilled just in local governments, like in the form of a town hall instead of a city council, there's a General Assembly, I think that, you know, the decisions themselves will be made more locally. I hate to think of us establishing a new world order or any kind of large centralized government or anything like that. I mean, locally, we will, you know, change what's happening here. Nationally, of course, definitely will help be a part of that change. And globally, we can be, you know, a smaller but still a massive part in helping create change where change needs to occur just through that networking and, you know, standing and reading and understanding where other people are coming from and focusing on the decisions that come out of their general assemblies.
So can you tell us a little bit about, given the size and scope of that, you know, moving with that number of cities, between 12 and 1,400 are the current estimates, what, from your perspective, what is the communication flow like? Do various, how does that movement communicate with itself, or does it? Do various components of it talk on a regular basis? I understand the General Assembly method as a mechanism to drive discussions at a local level or at a community level, but is there some way or some regular method of discussion amongst the occupiers globally?
Oh, definitely. Occupy Together themselves have created kind of a phone conference call where you can go and listen to other working groups and other people representing their occupations, and they'll tell you, you know, more about what's happening. And I know that there are systems to create international communication working groups and things like that just to keep in touch. The other day, April and I had the opportunity to talk with not just occupations all throughout the United States, but even as far as Africa and other places. So, you know, we're working on it. It just all needs time to get set up and find that centralized communication method, I'd say.
Well, sure, just the size of it alone, I think, would justify that answer. That's a pretty large group of people.
Jason, if you could articulate that.
You know, we've got a lot of email groups and things like that as well, and mailing lists that we all keep up with, you know, for updates from other occupiers in different states, countries too. So.
Okay, we've got one question here. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No,
We,
I would say a lot of the communication is taking place online as well, just because it's kind of the easiest at this point.
Okay, sorry, go ahead, Joe. We've got a question
Segueing
here.
into the conversation with them, ending on as far as where their monetary funds are coming from and what kind of interest groups are backing them, because I think that hasn't been released, and that does, I agree with Chad, that does take a large part of, you know, what other people would think of it.
Okay, so the question is, when it comes to the Occupy movement, funding sources, who are the funding sources? Are there any organized like interest groups or any sources of funding that is helping the Occupy movement in any way, whether it's communications, whether it's travel, whether it's support and logistics at a location, or anything like that? Do you guys have any insights or knowledge of that you can share with us?
And what are they doing?
Here locally, all of the funds that we've raised are essentially just our funds, as in they've been donated by people for us. There hasn't really been any big mass interest of any large companies or anything like that. If there was, I'm sure we'd immediately turn them away because, you know, we don't necessarily want the support of the 1%, if you will, or companies that represent and stand for that. However, we do smaller businesses that are donating items and allowing us to use their facilities and things like that. But usually we try to go with the more ethical, non-pod type Main Street businesses when it comes down to using equipment.
So from your all's perspective then, nothing that we would call a special interest group or an organized lobby or anything like that that's been providing any funds. This has been mostly individual donations or small business type donations. Would that be an accurate characterization?
Speaking for Minnesota, yes. I know that there's a couple of interest groups that have been involved on Wall Street, things like that. Of course,
Okay.
had a big movement with
Okay,
that.
fair enough. Oh, Carol, go ahead. Since you're close, they can hear you.
Oh, do you guys, this is maybe not as relevant, but where do you bank, and do you bank at a credit union or at any of the larger banks? And
Well, we've got our funds for, you know, all of the donations are in a affinity is what we use for the credit union. Personally, I bank with U.S. Bank, but that's not going to be for much longer. But yeah, that's just, you're right.
So currently our funds are in Affinity Plus bank accounts.
Still didn't get the answer. What are they doing with the
And
donation?
I too have a U.S. bank account, but
Okay, so the donations that are provided to the Occupy Minnesota that you have visibility on and maybe or some control over, what does the Occupy group or movement do with the funds they do receive in terms of donations? Where does that money go?
towards the occupies, the shitapotties, we call them occupies.
Occupy.
Food, sleeping bags, equipment, medical equipment as well, and just general supplies and anything we really need and is brought forth in front of the General Assembly by committees to fund.
Jody, does that answer your?
So it's not being used for advertising?
So you don't. So I guess the other question is, do you have an advertising budget that you use?
In the earlier days, I know a little bit of money was used for that. We do occasionally use some money for printing, but the website itself I bought with my money, so it's kind of my gift to the movement, and we haven't actually sold out any ads that I know of.
Yeah, I think there's been some talk about, maybe buying a radio ad, things like that, but we haven't moved forward with that just yet.
Okay.
I got another one.
Oh, go ahead.
They're getting a lot of attention, but I don't think a lot of people actually understand what they're doing. What are they doing about that?
Okay, so the question is, we think that the Occupy movement is receiving a lot of attention, both in the media and the public, but there's still a great deal of confusion amongst the public and the media as to what the Occupy movement is about or what they're actually doing. So the question is, are you all engaged in any kind of effort to fix that, to kind of close that understanding gap between the folks who see you all the time on the news and have the attention and visibility on you, but yet still don't quite understand what you're doing?
Yeah, I think that most of us are engaged in that on a pretty consistent level. People ask all the time, but as far as, we're still working as a group as far as getting our, lists of demands and things like that, like Wall Street's done and other occupations as well. But, I think that the people who don't really understand, what it's about, I'm not sure. In general, sorry, I'm rambling, but to answer your question, I think we're consistently engaged in it, and we're working as a group to make sure that we, have a cohesive list of demands.
Okay. One question I had was, since this has been going on for a while now, whatever your day count is, it varies depending on which Occupy movement you belong to, but How has this experience changed you, or has it changed you in any way? What do you feel differently about today